My son called me. His voice was cold as ice. Dad, we sold the lake house, and the old Jaguar too. We need the money to start a company in Dubai. You're on your own. I went silent. After 42 years of building everything we had, he erased it all in just a few words. But what he doesn't know is that my wife left me a secret one that could change everything. Before we go on, hit subscribe and tell me where you're listening from in the comments below. When the call ended, I just sat there, frozen on that old wooden chair in the living room. Outside the window, the Edinburgh sky was gray, drizzle falling softly as if echoing the emptiness inside me. In this wide, silent house, the ticking of the wall clock sounded cold and sharp. For the first time in 68 years, I felt completely left behind. The one person I trusted most, my only son, the boy I gave my whole life to, had just erased decades of memories with a few careless words. The lake house at Loch Lomond, the one my wife and I spent 15 years building, used to hold birthdays, Christmases, family dinners. Every wall, every wooden beam had our fingerprints on it. And that old Jaguar, it wasn't just a car. It was a symbol of our youth, our long drives across the Scottish Highlands, the hundreds of photos we took and plastered across our living room walls. Now all of it, gone, sold, without a single word to me. My thoughts drifted to Margaret, my wife gone less than a year. The day she closed her eyes for the last time, I promised I'd protect this family, that I'd keep our son safe from temptation. I truly believed Michael had grown into a good man. But today, hearing that cold, distant tone in his voice, I realized I was wrong. The 38-year-old man who once dreamed of being an architect is now someone I barely recognize, consumed by ambition, blinded by glitter and greed. When did he start changing? Was it the day he married Sophia, the beautiful daughter-in-law whose eyes always carried a hint of calculation? Or maybe it began when he started attending those lavish parties with his wealthy friends? I can't blame Sophia entirely. But I know ever since she stepped into this house, Michael and I have grown distant. Silent dinners, avoided eye contact. All the warning signs were there, and I ignored them. Now I'm paying the price. When Michael hung up, I didn't cry. Instead, there was only a hollow, freezing emptiness inside me. I walked slowly to the bookshelf, where our old family photos still stood. In one picture taken over 20 years ago, Michael was smiling wide, his arm wrapped around my shoulder. Beside us, Margaret's gentle eyes looked straight at me. I touched the frame, and for a moment, it felt like a needle piercing through my heart. How could that cheerful little boy become a man who could strip away everything his parents built? Without a second thought, the house felt unbearably quiet. I stepped out to the porch and took a deep breath of the cold Scottish air. Down the street, children were laughing and playing, so innocent, so unaware that one phone call could change a man's entire life. Maybe I'd been too soft. Since Margaret passed, I let Michael do whatever he wanted. No rules, no arguments. I was terrified of losing him too. But that kindness turned into a weapon. It made him think I would always stay silent. Then a memory hit me, Margaret's voice from that final night. She held my hand and whispered, "Don't worry, love. I've prepared something important for you, but open it only when the time truly comes." I didn't understand then. After the funeral, while sorting her things, I found a small steel safe locked tight. A note taped to the top, written in her familiar handwriting, "Thomas for the day of destiny." I'd kept it hidden in the closet, never opened it. I thought it was just sentimental, maybe some letters or old documents. But now, after what happened, her words echoed in my mind. Maybe this was the day she meant. My heart started pounding. Could something inside that safe change everything? I went to the bedroom, pulled the small safe out from under the shelf. My hands trembled as I touched the cold metal. The key was still in the drawer where Margaret had left it. I took a deep breath, anxiety and curiosity swirling inside me. Whatever was in there, I knew one thing: Margaret never did anything without purpose. And in that moment I realized something. I was no longer the helpless father waiting for his son to come back. It was time to stand up, to take control. And maybe, just maybe, Margaret had already given me the key to begin again. The key turned softly in the lock, but to me it sounded like thunder in the silence of the room. The door of the safe creaked open, releasing a faint metallic scent, mixed with a trace of lavender, the same scent from Margaret's handkerchief she always used to line her things. I leaned down, my heart pounding fast, like a young man about to face something unexpected. Inside weren't the letters or keepsakes I had imagined. Neatly stacked were thick folders of documents, along with a large yellow envelope. On it, in her familiar handwriting, were the words, "Thomas, when you feel betrayed, read this." A chill ran through me. She had seen this coming, all of it. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a long letter and a stack of legal papers, property deeds, bank statements, company shares. Margaret had written, "My love, if you're reading this, it means what I feared has come true. Michael is no longer the gentle boy we once knew. Ambition will guide him now. I know this will hurt you, but please, don't lose hope. For years I've quietly worked beside you, saving, investing, building a foundation for our family. You don't just own the lake house, Thomas. You now hold 8 properties across Edinburgh and a small hotel in Galway, Ireland. There's also £4.5 million in accounts under a company I created for protection. Everything belongs to you." I read those lines over and over, unable to believe them. All these years I thought we were living, simply surviving on pensions and modest savings. But Margaret, she had been quietly building an empire piece by piece, never boasting, never saying a word. She only smiled when I asked, "Are we going to be okay?" What broke me wasn't the millions in her name. It was her foresight, her calm strength. In the letter she continued, "Don't use this money to punish Michael right away. He must face the consequences himself. Fall to the bottom before he learns the true worth of family and love. If you save him too soon, he'll never change. But when he's lost everything, when he finally breaks open this door for him, show him that a father never abandons his son. But love doesn't mean turning a blind eye to his mistakes." I closed my eyes and saw her, Margaret, standing in the mist outside the window. Still the same, gentle but firm. I whispered a thank you for giving me direction instead of leaving me drowning in pain. I began going through the papers. A building on Princes Street, 2 apartments in Dundee, an old house in Stirling, a seaside hotel in Galway, all registered under Reed Holdings Limited. A name I had never heard before. Margaret had hidden everything, perfectly. I sat there for a long time, stunned. But slowly an idea took shape in my mind. This wasn't just wealth. This was a plan, Margaret's plan, for me to teach Michael the lesson he needed. At 10 that night, I stood up and poured myself a glass of whiskey. Outside, the rain still fell, streetlights spilling through the window in pale streaks. I spread the papers across the table, organizing them into neat piles. Each one felt like a chess piece. And I realized I was no longer the frail old man I'd been this morning. I was a player in a far greater game, one where my opponent was my own son. And in that quiet moment, I knew what I had to do. I wouldn't rush to rescue Michael. I would let him fall, feel the emptiness of losing everything he took for granted. Only then would I open the door Margaret left behind. I took a slow sip of whiskey. The burn spread through my chest, but it wasn't pain anymore. It was purpose. The despair I felt this morning was gone. Now, there was only resolve. I am not just a father cast aside. I am Thomas Reed, the heir to Margaret's legacy, and I'm ready to make my next move. It took me days to sort through every document, meet with our lawyer Graham, and understand how Margaret had quietly built everything from the shadows. Once it was all in my hands, I made a choice: silence. Michael had no idea. He thought all I had left was a small pension and an old house. And I watched from a distance, waiting to see where his ambition would take him. A few weeks later, the news began to spread. Michael and Sophia had flown to Dubai, bragging about launching a brand new tech company. On social media, I saw the pictures: sharp suits, bright smiles, champagne glasses raised against the skyline. Dozens of comments below, all congratulating them. I scrolled through quietly. No comments, no calls. Margaret's words echoed in my mind. Let him fall to the bottom. But the glamour didn't last long. 3 months later, I got a call from one of Michael's old friends, a man who'd also invested. His voice trembled. "Thomas, your son's been scammed. The company was just a front. The investors are gone with all the money." I gripped the phone, my heart aching, yet cold. This was it, the collapse Margaret had warned me about. Soon after Michael called, his voice was no longer proud. It was trembling, desperate. "Dad, it's all gone. The company. Sophia. She left. She's with one of the investors now. I've lost everything." I listened in silence, then said quietly, "There's nothing I can do for you right now." He broke down crying. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself not to give in. A few weeks later, he came back to Edinburgh, not as a man returning home in triumph, but as someone completely broken. He owed over £300,000 to banks and loan sharks. Neighbors whispered about him. I caught glimpses of his thin, hollow face wandering the streets, eyes sunken, shoulders bent. Sophia had vanished without a trace, leaving only a cold divorce letter behind. But the nightmare wasn't over. One dark evening, while running from the men chasing him for debt, Michael crashed his car into a barrier. The police knocked on my door close to midnight. He was in the hospital in critical condition. I sank into a chair, my head in my hands. Part of me wanted to rush to him, hold his hand like when he was little. But another part of me remembered Margaret's voice. "If you save him too soon, he'll never change." Still, I went to the hospital, but I stayed in the hallway. Through the glass, I saw my son lying there motionless, covered in bruises and tubes. The doctor said without immediate surgery, he could lose his ability to walk. Michael's eyes darted around the room, panic rising when he realized he had nothing left. He tried calling his old friends. No one answered. Finally, he dialed my number. "Dad, please, help me. I swear I'll change. I'll start over." His voice was weak, breaking apart with each word. I stood there, my chest aching, every plea cutting deep. But I knew it still wasn't time. I turned away quietly as the doctor said, "The patient must pay before we can operate." And I thought, this pain, this loneliness, it's the only thing that might wake him up. The next day I met with Graham again. Through Reed Holdings, I purchased every debt Michael owed, the bank loans, the private ones, all of it. Officially, I had just become my son's biggest creditor. A move had been made, and I knew the game had only just begun. In the days after the accident, Michael was discharged from the hospital, looking like a shadow of himself. He walked with crutches, limping through the gray rain of Edinburgh. No more luxury apartment, no wife by his side. He rented a small, shabby room on the outskirts of town. I knew. Every step he took now was the price he had to pay for his blind choices. I watched from a distance, torn between pain and resolve. At the hospital, the doctor told me Michael would need a large sum for full recovery surgery. I could have paid it with one check. But I didn't. Instead, I sat in Attorney Graham's office, listening as he explained that all of Michael's debts were now under Reed Holdings. Legally, my son no longer owed the banks or the loan sharks. He owed me. "Are you sure you want to keep hiding your identity?" Graham asked. I nodded. Let him believe the creditor is just some company. When the time's right, I'll tell him myself. A few days later, Michael received an envelope with the Reed Holdings logo. Inside was a cold message. "Your assets will be seized within 30 days unless payment is made." The small apartment he was renting actually belonged to me. Now, he had nowhere left to go. I could imagine his face, the panic in his eyes as he read those words. That night he called me. His voice trembled. "Dad, I'm losing everything. Some company's after me for the debt. I have nowhere else to go. Please let me stay with you. Just for a while. I closed my eyes. My heart churned. But I answered calmly, Michael, this house is too empty now. If you come back, it'll only hurt more. You need to find your own way. I heard him sobbing, but I couldn't let myself break. Time went on. Michael took whatever jobs he could find, hauling cargo at the docks, sometimes waiting tables in old bars. The man who once wore tailored suits now had rough hands, sunken eyes, and a limp that slowed every step. Neighbors whispered some pitied him, others mocked. But for me, that was the moment that truly mattered. He was finally learning the real value of work. One night on his way home from the bar, Michael was cornered by his old creditors. They threatened him, demanded money. He broke down terrified and furious. In his despair, he shouted, "Why won't anyone help me? I have no one left." A friend who witnessed it told me later, and my heart sank. But deep down, I knew he had finally hit rock bottom, and only when a man hits the bottom can he look up and begin to rise. So I took the next step. Graham arranged a negotiation between Michael and Reed Holdings. There, my son was told he must pay part of the debt or lose his place to live and be declared bankrupt. Michael went pale. He begged, pleaded, but the company's lawyer stayed cold. I sat in the next room watching through the frosted glass. Just one wall between us. And he had no idea his father was right there, the man pulling every string. After the meeting, he came to see me. This time there was no arrogance, no resentment. He sank into a chair, voice trembling. "Dad, I was wrong. I lost everything because of my greed. Now I have nothing, not even my pride. Please tell me what I should do." I stayed silent, looking into the eyes that once burned with dreams, now filled with exhaustion and regret. Inside, I knew the moment had come, the one Margaret had hoped for. But before revealing the truth, Michael had one more thing he needed to face. I placed my hand on his shoulder and said quietly, "Son, some lessons can only be learned through tears and blood. I'll show you the truth, but not today." That night, after hearing Michael whisper that all he had left was regret, I could barely sleep. I sat by the window watching the rain hit the glass, thinking about Margaret. I remembered her eyes in that letter, and her words, "Only when he truly falls should you show him that his parents never left." I knew. The moment had come. The next morning I asked Graham to arrange a meeting at the law office. Michael arrived looking exhausted, shoulders heavy, eyes lifeless. He thought it was another round of negotiation with Reed Holdings. But when he stepped inside, he froze. In front of him wasn't just Graham, it was me sitting at the table, a thick folder laid out before me. "Dad, what are you doing here?" he stammered. I slowly slid the folder toward him. "Son, it's time you knew the truth." Michael opened it, and for a few seconds he didn't move. Inside were pages of documents, property lists, bank accounts, company shares. All of it under Reed Holdings. All of it under my name. "No, this can't be real." He looked up, his voice breaking. I nodded. "Your mother planned everything. She hid it away, so that one day we could use it to save this family. But she also knew if we handed you everything too easily, you'd never grow. That's why we let you chase your ambitions, until you learned what truly matters." Michael trembled, flipping through the pages, lips moving but no words coming out. Then suddenly, he cried. Tears hit the table, blurring the ink on white paper. "Dad, I was such a fool. I betrayed you. I let Mom down. And yet, you still saved me. You paid my debts. I don't deserve it." I stood, walked over, and rested my hand on his shoulder. "Son, parents never want their children to be perfect. We just want them to take responsibility, to live with integrity. Mistakes are part of being human. What matters is how you rise after you fall." In that moment, the distance between us, once torn apart by greed and pride, began to heal. Michael turned and hugged me tight, sobbing uncontrollably, and I let my tears fall too, onto the hair I hadn't dared to touch in so long. After that day, Michael stopped chasing shortcuts to wealth. He started working with me and Graham, learning how to manage the assets, studying every property his mother had left behind. He stumbled off and made mistakes, but I never scolded him, because I knew this was the path Margaret had hoped for, the path that would turn a dreamer into a man. Time passed. Michael's health slowly returned through therapy. He still went to rehab sessions each week and worked tirelessly at the company. One afternoon as we walked along the lake, he stopped and said, "Dad, I want to start a foundation. For young people like me, those who chased dreams too hard, borrowed too much, and fell apart. I want to name it after Mom, so people remember her not just as a wife or mother, but as someone who gave second chances." I stood there, heart trembling, and smiled. Your mother would be so proud. From then on, we built Margaret's hope together. The old lake house once sold away was bought back and turned into a support center for struggling youth. Inside, a portrait of Margaret smiled gently, as if watching over every step we took. And one spring morning, as sunlight poured through the windows, Michael looked at me and said, his voice steady, "Dad, I know now. I'm not just living for myself anymore. I'll live to honor you." And Mom. I nodded, eyes glistening. After all the betrayal, loss, and pain, what remained was family, and the truth that real love isn't about shielding someone from every fall, but letting them fall and giving them the chance to rise again. Did this story touch you? Even just a little? I'd love to hear your thoughts and know where you're listening from. Every comment, every word of thanks from you is what keeps me going, what gives me the strength to keep sharing more stories that matter. Don't forget to subscribe so we can keep walking this journey together, because I truly believe every story has the power to change your day.